This is a Suno India production, and you are listening to Every Indian's Checklist.
The recent population estimates of just Delhi is around 30 million. In a country with approximately 1.37 billion people, that's a fifth of the whole population. In that, according to an India Today report, over 19,000 marriages happened in Delhi alone in the first 9 months last year. But India has figured in another report of theirs as the country with the lowest divorce rate. That by no way means that all marriages are successful and people stay together no matter what. It could also mean that people abandon their spouses or even put up with the abuse if that's the case, than get a divorce. Now apply the same to a NRI man who married an NRI woman.
NRI grooms continue to be well sought after by Indian parents who believe they can give their daughters a comfortable life by doing so. Anyways, quite many fail to verify the would-be's financial and living situation. Currently, India does not have recorded data on how many such NRI weddings have taken place. Background checks of these grooms are not easy to do, as many times parents and women themselves don't have means to verify the information being provided by middlemen or matrimonial sites or referees on groom-to-be. So that makes tracing and getting hold of evasive husbands more challenging. Surprisingly, India does not have a compiled public data on how many people get married every year and how many are divorced or abandoned. Now, Indian government is trying to pass the Registration of Marriage of NRI bill. It proposes that every NRI who marries an Indian has to register within 30 days.
As an initiative to help with NRI's problems in India, NRI cells have opened up through the years in many states to look after the interests and welfare of the NRIs and to be there as a facilitator between them and the state. States like Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Kerala, Chandigarh and Delhi have their own NRI cells. Almost all our states have their NRI grievance redressal forums. In Telangana, the NRI Women Safety Wing aims to provide legal guidance to aggrieved women in NRI marriages through its NRI cell with the support of the NGO NILA. One would just have to walk into the Women Safety Wing or call them up for support. When I spoke to the NRI Women Safety Cell in Telangana, they said that the NRI cell was a need of the hour and that's why they had to open one. But the standing committee data shows a decreasing all India figure of such complaints from 2016 to 2019. And in Telangana alone, there wasn't a considerable rise from 2016 to 2018. In fact, the number of cases recorded have reduced from 37 in 2017 to 28 in 2018. And only after compiling data till October 2019, the 2019 data shows 47 cases. Ramesh, who's an inspector in Hyderabad's Women Safety Wing, told us what the NRI cell would do.
NRI cell is not having power to register a case. If they come to here, we have to guide them to go to the local police. Only local police has the power to register a case. During investigation, if IOs do not follow the SOPs, after receiving the complaints, we will contact the investigating officers regarding investigation, what they have done so far. If any gaps are found out, we will our officers from this office will instruct them what they have to do further. If the case is pending since many years, the respondent is not coming from abroad, in the situations a letter can be sent to the regional passport officer for impounding his passport by enclosing FIR, charge sheet and the non-bailable warrant issued against him. Our investigating officer will request the regional passport officer for impounding his passport. In other cases, the accused is not attending the court since many years. In that cases, IO can address a letter to our government with requesting to address a letter to the embassy where he is staying in our Indian embassy to put pressure on him.
B. Sumati IPS, who is the superintendent of the Crime Investigation Department in the Women Protection Cell in Hyderabad, was explaining the other day about the compulsory registration of NRI marriages. She said it will make them easier for them to track whether the couple are separated or not. The bill was passed last year in Rajya Sabha. And following that, just recently, A standing committee report noted that around 5,300 complaints related to NRI martial grievance between January 2016 and October 2019. The Ministry of External Affairs had said that they do not have the category-wise data and also said they have addressed all the 5,300 complaints they have received till 31st October 2019.
It is compulsory registration of NRI marriages. Once it is done, I think everybody, it will be easy for us to track. It is easy for us to track as per the Indian law whether they are separated or not once they are registered. Who are married as per the Hindu Marriage Act
What is
and registered here. Who go outside the country.
While the individual cases and procedures will be dealt by the lawyers, the police act as a mediator between the aggrieved parties and the local authorities. But one of the main issues that the women who marry NRIs face is that even after getting divorced as per the law of the land in another country where they're staying, they are denied maintenance in India because their marriage was dissolved abroad and not here. This is one place where the Indian legal system does not yet have a support system. In case the husband stops supporting the wife who has come along to live with him, there aren't any provisions in the wife's visas to support them to stay there and seek a redressal for this.
At times like this, the local authorities can cancel the dependent wife's visas if the husband makes a simple complaint to the immigration authority. In many foreign places, the spouses can get a divorce even when both of them are not present and also not pay maintenance charges. Then the husband can take advantage and divorce his wife before she even figures out how to legally act against him. This makes it difficult for her to stay back to legally act against him. What can she do then? To understand this, I spoke with Zakia Afrin, who deals with Maitri's legal advocacy, and Protima, an attorney who works with Maitri, helps us understand what an NRI woman can do at these times. There are NGOs like Maitri to guide and help these women in times like these. Maitri is a non-profit organization in the USA based in the San Francisco Bay Area, California. They help South Asian spouses and families who are facing domestic violence, emotional abuse, cultural alienation, or family conflicts. Basically, they let the women come and speak up to them, even with complete anonymity. Then they counsel them and for further aid connect them to an attorney or to some organization in India.
Most of the people, when they are coming here, they have no support system. The only support system they may have had was the house that they were sharing with their spouse. Now, with the divorce process going on, most of the times that's not a valid option anymore. So that's where if we know that someone has a valid visa and they are trying to come in, then we try to find out where they will stay for the duration that they are here, or if they need to figure out their immigration options for longer period, where they will stay. And many times we provide them shelter information or some long-term supportive housing system. Now, there are some free legal services available, but not always, not in all states, not in all counties.
United States, throughout the country, different states have different requirements for what is called residency before you can apply for a divorce. What residency means is not in the immigration terms. It means where you have lived physically. And so most states require a 6-month residency and most counties require 3 months.
For any reasons, if the wife comes back to India, their divorce in foreign court is not recognized in India, but it gives an advantage for the husband wherever he lives to say he is divorced and get away with it. In places like the US, divorce process is much easier than in India. In fact, our cops even feel that these couples do not have the right to get a foreign divorce.
As per our Indian laws, they are getting marriages in India, so they don't have right to take the divorce in abroad.
When people live in another country, that country laws give them rights to get a divorce or file cases against abuse, harassment, and other conflicts. But people are not covered under that foreign land's protections when they come back to India. For instance, if I get a stay against my abusive husband or even get a divorce in the USA, it will not apply when I come back to India.
Here in the United States, it doesn't matter where your marriage has happened as long as you have a legal and valid marriage. Your legal and valid marriage can be annulled in any jurisdiction in the United States, so long as you meet the requirements for filing for divorce. If somebody in India wants to question the validity of that legal decree, they need to file their own lawsuit there to request the court in India to consider whether this is a legal and valid divorce decree. Most of the time, the people who approach us with a already pending case in India are women who've been served with divorce summons from India and are actually intending to file something in the United States. But there is a civil procedure issue that has to be considered by the lawyers in India as well as in the United States.
Some people may actually feel the other way, that if it happens in India, they get to benefit in terms of certain property issues or other things. So it's a very individual decision. There are many situations when there is something happening in the US already, and the spouse who is back in India is resisting to participate because they feel, I was married in India, my case needs to happen in India. Somebody connects with us, and this is the first thing they say: I'm married in India. Why do I get a divorce in a US court? I'm not even there. But for the California court, residency is the thing that's most important. A California court, even when one party is not present, may actually entertain a divorce request from one party in a marriage. And that's not exclusive to California. We have seen in other states as well.
Except in very few cases where there are other cases pending in India or some technicalities, you can very well apply for a divorce in a foreign country you live in and be protected under their law. Getting protected from an Indian court may or not may apply abroad without the court's permission. Protima has even clarified that in a country like the USA, even if you are visiting for 2 weeks and something happens to you, you can call the police there and seek relief or a restraint order in case of abuse or domestic violence. But when something goes wrong, a good understanding and cooperation between two countries will help us in getting hold of the offender and bringing them to justice. More often than not, the abusive husband will try to stay a step ahead of the woman and evade being contacted. So when a woman approaches the women's safety cell, this is what Sumati said they would do.
By getting in touch with various agencies, by trying to trace those people, trying to reach the employer first, or trying to reach the person himself through the agency which has booked the case, the particular IO, or through the embassy sometimes, where we can see that they are told through a mediator that you can come and settle down easily. If not, we are trying, if there is also to build up evidence, if they have already filed a DV case over there, we will get that evidence and make it part of the criminal case in India to put pressure for the impounding of passport and XYZ. Marriages which happen in India and which are registered in India, where the harassment has started from India, that is where they can book a case here. When you are booking under an Indian law, it means that you are booking as an Indian citizen, where you have performed a marriage as an Indian citizen here to an NRI, and where you are being harassed as an Indian citizen, you are meted out harassment.
Unfortunately, there are no mentions of any private international laws or bilateral agreements between USA and India when it comes to divorces or marriages, especially due to abuse and harassment. Not just the USA and India, but between India and any other country, we don't find bilateral agreements regarding such matters of marriages. This is a concern when NRIs who are married in India live there.
India is a signatory of Hague Conventions. They are international conventions and conferences to discuss private international laws. There are special rules to apply for issues that concern many countries at once. There is a specific Hague Convention on Civil Services of Summons that deals with serving of summons and processes. Through that convention, the United States and India have a specific way in which you have to serve diverse summons and any other lawsuit summons.
If the case is filed in the United States and the defendant or the respondent is living in India, then proper service of summons is governed by the Hague Convention that India is a signatory to. And it requires that all the paperwork has to be sent to central authority in New Delhi. in the Ministry of External Affairs, and central authority has a process by which they go ahead and find a way to serve these summons. So you have to pay a fee and all of that, and then it's properly served, and then you get all the paperwork back. Depending on whether the courts in the United States are aware of that or not, sometimes service of summons is the only reason why cases haven't moved forward in the United States. I know that in my practice in the past, there was a challenge in trying to get central authority to properly serve summons. And it's very frustrating for many of our clients because they know that their families see the respondent walking on the streets in the city in India, and they want to know why their parents couldn't or their families couldn't just go up to this person and give him the summons and say, you're properly served with a divorce from the United States. Because of the Hague Convention on the Service of Summons, there are cases that were pending in the United States that could not go forward because service was considered improper unless it went through the central authority, which is a designated authority under the Service of Summons. The other thing I do want to highlight, it's not a convention that India is a part to, but I keep on advocating for it, is the Hague Convention on Child Abduction and Kidnapping. India is not a part to that Hague Convention. And because India is not a party, if a child who is a US citizen is abducted by an abusive parent, and I know that you can't kidnap your own child, but I talk about it in the context of an extension of domestic violence, when the parent, usually the male, who's usually the perpetrator of the violence and also the parent of these children, when they take the children abroad and they take children to India, we practitioners and advocates like Zakia have trouble trying to track the child down because India is not a party to the Hague Convention on Kidnapping and Child Abduction. If India was a party, then all we needed to do was to go to the FBI here in the United States and have them activate their process to be able to start to track down the child or the children. Instead, if a parent, usually the father, usually perpetrator of domestic violence, if the parent decides to abduct children and take them to India, then the parent who's left behind here has to go to state court, file for emergency orders for child abduction and retrieval, then work with the local authorities here who contact the local authorities where the child or children perhaps may be in India, and then proceed.
Also, the local laws there can make it either tricky or secure for you to obtain a divorce. For instance, if you live in a place like California, their family code needs both spouses to fully disclose and declare all the things they have and information regarding the same to each other. Also, they should update when changes happen. You'll be fined if you don't comply. On top of all this, there will be many challenges with the way the immigration law comes together with domestic violence laws and family laws. The web that a survivor has to weave to be able to escape will be very complicated. So we cannot put the onus on the survivor to figure out how to get help. We need systems that are meant to ensure the safety and security of all.
Thank you for listening to Every Indian's Checklist. You can listen to this podcast in our website sunoindia.in and any other podcast app of your choice.